be helpful if you started with the scar tissue analogy.
Yeah. All right, so when I was a kid, I became aware at some point, I don't know what age, that there was something horrifyingly wrong with the adults in how they thought and how they related with me as a being, and with what they would do, especially if they were forming an accusation like you did something wrong, this kind of thing. And it took me a long time to realize, and it took me much, much longer to be able to articulate it, that there was a catastrophic problem in the systems they were using to ascribe or derive identity, function, and outcome, or cause and effect, right? Especially where it came to human beings, me particularly as a child. And I realized there's something horrifyingly wrong in their minds, and eventually this was so terrifying that me and a few of my friends made a deal with each other when we were 11, that if any of us made it to 30, the others would come and take us out so that we would not be subject to this, because we didn't want to live like the adults around us. We knew they were fucking broken in their minds, even though we loved them, and they seemed like gods because they could do things like have jobs and buy cars and, repair things or build things or all these things. And so I made a vow to myself as a child that I would somehow remember what it was like to be a child, even if I became subject to the strange thing that had destroyed the minds of all the adults around us, and particularly our teachers, even though they were a little bit better. And occasionally you'd meet someone who was a little bit outside of the problem, and the people I looked to primarily for that were science fiction authors. So yeah, these three things: how adults perceive and treat identity, particularly in children and or mothers, women, whatever, the softer beings, we might say, how they treated cause and effect, and what they thought of as what something was for, like why it is or its function. And these three things, they're out of their fucking minds. Like, they're just completely batshit insane. They're using systems that are not human, that we didn't develop. We inherited this shit when we were born. They inherited it from their insane parents, and we just keep passing it down to our children. It's a fucking nightmare. It's literally like it makes our world hell, and it makes it impossible for us to survive.
Yeah. And so...
You were talking about how it's just so please run by that again.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting in the middle of it. We're looking at computers that are connected to infrastructure that people are glued to on a daily basis. We're sitting in homes that were built not for love or appreciation of life, but for profit. And I mean, that's everything. I mean, literally not a day goes by in this city where I'm not constantly just hearing cars around and around and around. Mm-hmm. In this grid-like system. It just...
Most of the world is paved. If you go outside, cars own most of the terrain out there.
Yeah.
And they will kill you right now with impunity. They're not human. They're not beings. They're just machines running around. I just have to say, never in the history of nature was there ever an object, even one time, that would just run right over you, especially with a being inside it, right? When deers freeze in the headlights, and he was like, why don't they get out the fuck out the way? The humans are actually the stupid animal there, because the deer knows something that's fundamentally evolutionarily sound, which is if you stop, no creature is just going to bash the fuck into you and kill you, right? If you stop, the other creature will be able to go around you. This is not what happens in cars. What happens in cars is if you stop, you get killed, right? You have to get the fuck out of the way of the car, because the car is doing something that nothing in nature does, with the possible exception of a boulder rolling down a mountainside. But even that, at least that thing's predictable, kind of.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I've never been in front of a rhino. I don't know what that would be like, but I imagine...
But that's something that's trying to hit you, right? That's good. I mean, you could get in the way of for example, a herd of buffalo, and you'd be in bad shape. Yeah. Because that thing can't go around you. Can't really stop.
Yeah, and also just looking at garages and seeing how a major part of the home is for the car to be safe and sound.
Yeah, not only that, what those cars, like, if you look and you see, it's almost, if you look at a city block, it's like a cell surrounded by viruses of enormous size, right? You know, like in The Princess Bride, they have those rats of enormous size or whatever, right? But we have our viruses of enormous size, and they're called cars. And the cars are literally draining the lifeblood out of the people inside the buildings to pay for the insurance and the fucking repairs and the parking and the tickets and the fucking registration and the gas and all these things. And so it's really like you have a demon outside that's sucking your life out of you. And most of the time it's just sitting there. And by the way, I want to ask you a really interesting question about cognition and identity. And the question is, what is a car when you're not using it?
It is just a hollow space that sits there.
Because it's not a vehicle.
Right.
Right? So what is it? Because when you're not driving it and it's not transporting you, I would argue that its identity changes into something completely different.
100%, yeah.
Right? That we don't even talk, we never talk about this, right? We just think, no, it's a car because that's the category of object that it belongs to. What do you think?
You use this stool as a table more than use it as a stool.
Absolutely, I do.
I mean, it's just, and that's a very simplistic answer, but if my phone's battery were to die, this would just be a brick. It would just be, it would honestly suck. I would hate to lug this thing around if it wasn't so capable of doing things in my life. So yeah, that is a very good point.
Because most of the time the car's just sitting there, unless you're an Uber driver or you're a taxi driver or whatever.
Well, I lived out of my car.
Yeah, sure, that could be a home. Could be a home.
Yeah, and it was more than a vehicle.
It probably wasn't designed to be a home. I would guess that it's probably fairly toxic inside that thing in terms of chemistry, but I haven't done the testing.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of plastic in there for sure.
A lot of plastic and glue and stuff.
A lot of heat that goes into there.
Right, there's a lot of off-gassing and rubber and foam and things. Yeah. Who knows what that carpet's made of?
Yeah.
The upholstery isn't leather, so what the fuck is that? Like molecularly, it's got to be weird.
Well, I've had the fortune of living in nature for extended periods of time for very little expense. And I can tell you first of all, it was painful because it provides so much space for this kind of conversation to come up. It's like, wow, I really can see with new eyes how I've been living my life and how disconnected from it. It's like deprogramming happens within the first 3 days of just being in nature. And having done that for 2 months, by the end of it, my nervous system was dreading coming back to the city. Like really,
good reason.
It was like deep pits in my stomach. And I told myself, I don't want to go back. And I'm going to do what I can to get out of it. But here I am back in the city, and I'm already thinking, okay, so I got to get a place, and how much is rent, and I got to get a job, and am I going to like the job, and how am I going to socialize? And it's like, holy shit, I'm sucked back into it immediately. It's natural because I'm used to thinking about these things, but my eyes have been open to a different way of living, and it's not going to be the same. I can't be in a house without just analyzing how ridiculous it is to be and all the objects that are around, and and
okay, so I just want to take us back.
Sure.
Bookmark your thought if you've got something good.
Yeah.
You got it bookmarked?
Yeah,
awesome. I do. So what we were talking about is, I was saying that what we inherit, okay, this is so. What is running? I had nightmares back when I was badly hurt. I would start dreaming that I'm on a bus, and I would suddenly realize that there was some kind of fundamental problem, and I would turn terrifyingly to look at the driver, and there'd be nothing in the driver's seat, and I realized oh, we are fucked. because you can't stop the bus, you can't steer the bus. It's just going to take you whatever the fuck is what. There's a ghost. It's the absence of a human that is sitting in the driver's seat. And this is what is driving our fucking societies, our civilizations, our cultures. It's not a human. It's not even a monster. It's worse than a monster. It's the abject absence of humanity. And we think and treat these processes as if they are persons. We think like, if Google says like, oh, we're really sorry about what happened to you, there's no thing there to be sorry. There's no sorriness. There's no senses. There's no emotion. A corporation doesn't have a mind. It's not a person. A government doesn't have a mind. It's not a person. They will kill everything. They will kill your children. They will eat them up. They will carve them up and feed them to dogs. It doesn't matter. Like, they don't care. There's nothing there to care. And so what we're actually faced with is that our social systems, the infrastructure that we inherit when we're born as modern humans, it's not merely malignant, it's actively zero-sum, game theoretically despises life. And what it feeds on is habit, fear, and money, essentially. These three things. And so we're in this weird situation where the sclerosis in the history of human thought and behavior is what's running. It's like the scar tissue, the dead, cancerous scar tissue is what's running our culture and our corporations and our what we call governments. And we think of this as civilization, which is just mind-blowing. So far, we haven't been able to invent anything that can outcompete it. But it should be relatively easy to do so, I think.
Well, and that perfectly segues into where I was going. So I've had that dream many times of being in the backseat of a car and realizing that no one's driving. And surprisingly, it's navigating traffic, but it's fucking terrifying. It does. I'm like swiping past stop signs, and I eventually get into the driver's seat and I slam on the brakes and it doesn't work. You know, and I
love in dreams when I hit the brakes and nothing happens.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, me too. It's exhilarating.
That's actually how I feel most of the time in waking life.
Yeah.
Right? The brakes in the car work. The brakes on civilization don't work at all, right? Like, there's no way to stop. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and when I brake myself, that's when Anyway, another dream that I had when I was little was arguably one of the scariest dreams I've ever had. I was in a completely white void, and there was a red line that extended infinitely in one direction and infinitely in the other. And it didn't matter which direction I went because it was essentially going to be the same, and I had to choose. It was like, you have to choose which way you're going to go, and you're going to be walking that line forever.
And essentially what you're saying is there's no choice criteria, or...
There was sort of a sense between future and past.
Okay.
And so that really... I relate to that in a way because I think, okay, I agree, the scar tissue system that's going on, there are people who I've met who think that we can progressively change the system to a better future. And then there's me who's had a taste of what it's like to be out in nature, and that feels more like going back into the past of like, sloughing off the technology and just saying, okay, let's sloughing off the electronics and and just going back to more indigenous ways of thinking, if we could even recover such a thing. Anyway, my point is, there was that choice in that dream of go to the future, go to the past, and that scared the shit out of me until I realized that if you just step out of that paradigm, out of that dualistic thing, there's got to be another way of living, where it's not simply just go back to the land and this is where I don't know. This is what I'm still trying to figure out, because I think there's so much beauty with relating in the land and eating, growing your own food and having smaller communities, but that's what we were doing before, and something much bigger, call it greed, call it fear, whatever we did as humanity to stomp that out and colonize and fear. I have a feeling that will happen again, if we just go back to the land, unless something changes. And I don't know what that would be. Did I articulate that?
That was good.
Yeah.
There's so much there. You know, I'm reminded of various things that I heard Eric Weinstein talking about this afternoon as I was listening to him attempting to explain to somebody who I thought was pretty dense why they should be afraid about artificial intelligence and what it does, or why they should realize that we're a dead species walking, since the first guy said, I wonder if there's these things called neutrons. And why Eric, who is Jewish, talks about Passover, because Passover isn't a celebration. Passover is the active reenactment of the remembrance of get the fuck out of here now, so that we can survive long enough to have children again, that kind of thing, or something like that in Eric Weinstein's mind. In any case, he was talking. I thought this was so amazing, because the host, who I think is very dense, was saying, this is the most exciting time to be. I love being alive right now. It's amazing. It's just there's all these amazing things happening, and Eric's going like, you are broken in your mind, my friend. Like, I love you and everything, but you're not. Did
he say that?
Awake. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, I cannot imagine feeling that unless you're living a very privileged life at the moment.
Well, the guy's a comedian, so that has something to do with it, perhaps. But which, you know, Eric is like, I think we've underestimated comedians. They're at least on par with philosophers, and maybe better. But what Eric said was, I visited this place called something like Encounter Beach. And I'm thinking, like, this is where humans encounter beings from the sky, right? It's going to be amazing. And he was like, this is where the indigenous people first encountered the colonizing people. And I want you to think, because they probably thought that was an amazing time to be like, this is just amazing. These beautiful humans in these giant vessels from who knows where, right, have come, and we're gonna be together, and they're gonna fucking give us blankets with smallpox and kill our fucking children and just massacre us en masse and bury us, you know, in graves that aren't even. I mean, they'll just burn our bodies, and they're gonna assassinate the entire species of bison. They're gonna kill all the bears. They're gonna kill the jaguars and the fucking, you know, bobcats and everything that moves. They're just gonna kill it, and they're not gonna stop there. They're gonna go after the fucking frogs and the toads and the salamanders and the spiders, and they're going to spray DDT, and then when they're not going to stop there, they're going to go from there to Roundup. They're not going to stop there. They're going to build nuclear weapons. They're not going to stop there. They're going to build neutron bombs that only kill the organisms and don't leave any radiation. So you get to have just the only, you know, the dead,
sterilized
space. Like, there's no fucking bacteria even there anymore, right? It's just dead space.
And so it sounds like there isn't just no driver. It sounds like there is a killing machine that is just stabbing them.
There is. That's the fucking problem. Yeah. It's the absence of everything that could be human that is literally driving the processes that own our species at the group level. Just as if you were in a fucking cage. Yeah. It's just own it. Completely own it. Yeah. And weirdly, what's happening is there's this spiral, this exponential process of spiralizing, recursive recolonization, so that a lot of my friends aren't really concerned. Like, I don't really care if Facebook fucking learns shit about me, or Google, you know, fucking studies me, or whatever. I don't fucking care. They give me the advertisements are better, you know. Like, what are they going to do with it? I mean, you know. And I'm like, oh my fucking god, you have like 2 neurons left in your mind? Like, what are you even thinking?
Sedated pig in a cage.
Yeah, right.
That Radiohead song. Yeah.
If you can be psychographized, you can be directly manipulated, and not only even if you yourself, right? Suppose that you or I, we decide like, okay, 0 electronic communication from now on, nothing ever again in the rest of my life. No more cell phone, no more internet, no more computer. The problem is they'll psychographize your friends,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll manipulate your friends. And unless you're going to be an absolute isolate and live entirely by yourself, which is the complete opposite of what the human animal is for.
Mm-hmm.
We are for communal nature, right? We are pod animals like dolphins or bonobos, or not necessarily like chimpanzees. Those things are a little nuts. But yeah, we are more like the whales and the bonobos and stuff. We thrive and need tightly knit small group intimacy, in my view. From everything I've learned about. So go ahead.
And that's the thing. It's like I really thought I was going to have to go the hermit route, and I've felt enough isolation to know how bad that stings and how dull it feels. It's an understatement.
Okay, can I just say a little bit about your situation?
Please.
I know that you're struggling and you're trying to understand, like, what do I do now? Where do I go? How do I make this work? And what I want to suggest to you, and I want you to think about it over time, you don't have to answer right now or whatever, and we can get on with the sort of the fun talk that we're having now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to suggest to you is a hybrid existence, where you're neither, okay, there's alone time, there's symbiotic time in nature, and there's city time, and there's communal time. And you just orbit around just like you've been doing, and you don't have to bind to any specific thing.
That's a really powerful perspective, and that's something I definitely... I love the idea of just choose one, which is a mind virus of its own.
Exactly.
I'm
one thing mind.
But
one thing mind.
I fall victim to it quite a bit, and it's something...
One thing mind, my son. You think one thing. Think one thing. Think one thing true. One thing good. One thing the way. Only one thing way. One thing way, it help you.
Is that from a movie?
No, I made that up.
You made that up?
Toymaker fucked me up about that. He was like, you guys have this one thing problem. What the...
One thing.
Actually, Alfred Korzybski calls it single-valued thinking.
Single-valued thinking. Yeah, well, it plagues me to this day. It still eats my insides up.
It fucks me up too, but at least I'm aware of it, and we can talk about it. Once we have nomenclature and we can agree to help each other see beyond, then we've got the chance of getting a sort of a superposition above what normally happens to us as humans.
For sure. Well, certainly in my time spent alone, when that has been a positive thing for me, it's really bloomed so much insight and so much direction in my life. But then it proceeds by, okay, I need to go find people who think like me, or at least I can talk to about this, and we can just start getting the ball rolling in some way. And I've met a lot of people who really care about the state of the world at the moment, and
I bet they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do, and I've never met anyone who says, I see the whole picture, I know how everything is going.
So you haven't met Ken Wilber? Oh, you just need to meet Ken Wilber, bro.
I don't know who
he's got the whole thing.
He's got the whole thing.
Yeah,
well, we got to talk to that guy.
Ken is the man.
Yeah, and but I do see lots of different perspectives that join together are very powerful. And so there are people who are working on this issue in their own way. Which phone is recording? That one. Gotcha.
We're just having a little private joke there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I I'm excited because it's really the thing I care about the most is the state of the world at the moment. How could I not? I mean, I want life to continue, and maybe actually I'm not going to go there because I feel like that's dangerous.
No, go. Okay, now that let's go.
Okay. In my spiritual journey, I've spent a lot of time zooming out beyond myself and sort of altruistically loving other beings. And I've spent a lot of time in scenarios of just like, oh, what would I do to save another being's life? And there are so many scenarios which I would give my life for proliferation of beauty. And I can't say, oh, well, these are the scenarios in which I would do it. These are scenarios I wouldn't. But there are
it's very one thing mindy.
Yeah,
by the way, right?
But there are. I just know that they exist.
Yeah.
And that willingness to die for I say beauty, but just an ineffable.
It's something like meaning.
Yeah.
Meaningful. So here's the thing: we're all trying to avoid death very furiously. We have these like houses that are fucking dead inside, so we're protected from death. Right? There's nothing moving in here, which is a lesson that my friend's dog Hado taught me as he watched those leaves outside my window moving in the wind, and he was just like glued to them for like dear life, the way a diver is glued to oxygen. Yeah. Because there's not one fucking thing moving in my house that's alive, right? Right. And Hado's alive, which by the way is the Masaru Emoto's the spirit of water is called Hado, which is how the dog gets his name. In any case, where the fuck am I going here? If I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, beauty. All right, so we're really trying to preserve our lives, and we don't realize, but you start to realize as you get older and death starts getting closer, you start realizing, like, why have I been protecting this thing that is supposed to be given up for something beautiful and amazing and profound, right? And I think, in a way, and Kevin would love to hear me saying this, we have this model of Jesus, which Amon Hillman would completely attack. But we also have this model of Socrates, who gave up his life, right? Rather than be divided from his companions and children and elders, and I mean he was an elder by this time, and he was accused of impiety because he proposed that even the gods were subject to truth, right? And so that there was a principle that was higher than the gods. And this is a very complex story, so I'm going to skip over that and just say something really simple. As you get older, you begin to realize that a life is something that should be given for the sake of beauty and virtue and verity and insight and love and maybe even truth. And it's fucking miserable to find yourself at the end of your life not having given for that.
Having just bought into fear or whatever.
Or just protected the fuck out of the thing.
Well, right? And that's the thing. It's like I've had enough privilege in my life and safety to know what it's like to be like, okay, all my basic needs are met, but god damn, am I starving for meaning? Like, oh my god, do I need... And you can go into the hierarchy of needs or whatever, it's right there.
By the way, that's stolen from the Blackfoot people and completely misinterpreted.
Is it?
Yeah. Like, Ryan and his elder... was it Alan Pard was one of... No, Narcissus. Ryan and Narcissus used to go around the universities and tell the story of how... what is his name? The hierarchy of needs guy? I can't remember it.
It's not Pavlov, it's like... I don't know.
It'll come to me, but how that guy essentially wrote that right after hanging out with Blackfoot people and having basically misinterpreted the foundational principles that orient their way of life, and of course, commodifying it and turning it into a system, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, yes.
Well, the theorem still works. So that meaning and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yep, that's right.
I'm just going to mention Ryan, first diver, right, and Narcissus Blood. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much it.
No, it's not. What you're trying to say is something... Okay, can I
sure.
re-spark you
sure.
here? All right, what you're trying to say is, I've had these realizations,
yep.
and I'm trying to find people like myself, and I'm finding some people, but nobody really knows what to do. Nobody's got a plan, number one. And what's the next?
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, personally, now I'm back to a stage where it's like I need to get my basic needs met. Like I need to restabilize and have like some sort of system of getting food and shelter consistently because I've been on the road so long. And then once doing that, I really will be in that search again. Right now, I'm kind of doing both at the same time.
Okay. I got you.
And so, I have you in my life, which is incredible.
And vice versa.
Right. And now I know so many people who care about this issue, even if they have different ways of going about it.
It's true.
And I'm very interested.
Mention the community in Oakland.
Right.
Who were they called?
Canticle.
Canticle
Farms.
Great.
Yeah.
Canticle Farms. Okay. And where is the farm where you were recently involved?
I don't know if that
should be mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know.
No sweat.
I'm not. I feel like I'm not a good representative for those groups.
We're not asking you to be a representative. Mm-hmm. It's just plugging, right?
Gotcha.
So the other people who are listening might be able to find that path. But it's okay. You're fine.
Well, I will say Canticle Farms is very accessible. They have a website, I think. So they
and these are they're people oriented toward intentional community,
right?
And food sovereignty,
mm-hmm.
and living together on the land to some degree.
I would look at their website. I think I would.
They can speak for themselves.
Yeah, they can speak for themselves. Yeah. And so, anyway, and it's not just them. It's people I've met on the road who. And I'm very interested in bridging.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to solve conflicts within people's own bodily psychical systems, and also between people. I really love doing that. I've been doing it my entire life. I've been doing it poorly for most of my entire life, but really giving it heart. But now that I'm in touch with my own heart and learning, I just that's what really calls to me, and so that's sort of the role that's the North Star I'm following at the moment. You know, is like how can I learn to help people connect to themselves and take care of themselves, and also how can I help connect people who would be good to be connected, be together.
That's brilliant. I absolutely believe in that path, and celebrate that motivation, that orientation, which I think is natural to human beings. Like rescue each other, go pull the thorns, pull the stabbing pin, like the voodoo pins that have been placed in the people we love, just like slide those gently out and then throw them away, right? So that person can just like have a meaningful living situation, and interiority can heal, and their bodies can heal, and their psyches can heal, and all of this. And I absolutely love and respect that motivation. At the same time, and I've got, a nine vector view, right? Not a one vector view.
Right.
But we both know that the humans have reached critical mass in terms of their technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is part of what Eric was saying, that he couldn't get his host to understand, is that happened in 1930 something, bro. And we're just a dead species walking and blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm a bit, I'm a talented doom singer, because I'm really concerned about, so I love the humans. I'm not a misanthrope, but the humans at the group level are a fucking terrifying absence of, I don't even know what to call it. It makes nightmares look happy and joyful. But I'm an anthrophile. I love the humans. But much more than being an anthrophile, I'm a Gaiaphile. I love the earth. I just believe in the earth to an unimaginable degree, and I'm a biophile. I love the organisms. To me, the organisms and the earth and the humans are the same thing. So if you harm the organisms, you harm the earth, you harm the history and future of life on earth, you harm the humans, right? You can't get away with speciesism or valuing one thing over the other much. There are exceptions, right? Again, in a 9-vector view, you can focus on vectors where one thing's more important because of X. But it seems to me that our desire to rescue individual humans, to heal them, to be medicinal to them, won't matter if the context collapses.
For sure.
So Here's one of the things that happens, at least to males. I can't speak for females. They can speak for themselves. They can determine whether this happens to them. I would love to hear from females about this. By the way, this kind of noise is a very selfish thing. In any case, sometime around adolescence, there's this great book by Larry Niven called Protector. And I'm not going to go into the story right now. This is one of my very favorite science fiction books. Along with, I'm going to mention a couple of others, Macroscope, What If the Stars Are Gods, Dahlgren, and one or two other books.
What about Speaker for the Dead?
Oh yeah, Speaker for the Dead is amazing. Unfortunately, Orson Scott Card is kind of a bad human being, but yeah, some of his books are nuts. The whole Ender's Game trilogy series is very amazing. So what happens to us, and I don't think there's enough talk about this, is that if we are altruistically oriented, and many of us are, I just have to mention Lucius Shepard's unusual science fiction author that I adore, who wrote Life During Wartime and other books. Okay, so what happens is we start to have the desire of protecting things, and this may happen to us before we become adolescents. You might want to protect your little sister or your little brother or even your older brother or your older sister. You might want to protect your family. There's this very intrinsic to the masculine protect the beings feeling. And what happens in adolescence, or at least what happened to me, is that feeling became... there's so many problems here. So one of the problems is this. I suspect that until fairly recently, it was impossible to think as a human being, or as a male, of, quote, the world, unquote. There was no such thing as the world. What you knew about were the people you lived with and the place in which you lived. And that was it. You didn't know doodly squat about China or South America or anything like that, right?
There was just sort of this fog on the border of
exactly,
the
right? The world was our place. And we were the people. Not a people, the people. We were the people. If you look at indigenous culture, in every single one of them, they're like, we are the people.
Really?
Yeah, and the origin story is about where the people, us, where we come from. Right. Not where all humans come from, where we come from. Mm-hmm. And that mountain over there, and this river over here, and that lake over there, those are the delimiters of the world, right? When there's stories...
wait, hold on. I just want to be clear.
Sure.
So, what I've heard indigenous cultures through people who are indigenous and also are people who my vocabulary here is people who have that lineage, and also museums. They talk about people from the stars. They talk about
the Dogon people, for example, do that.
Yeah. I have a hard time believing that they think that they are the only people on the world. And maybe it can be interpreted by... that it could be an interpretation of their words, but
that's
considering their robust cosmology and also their relationship with the land, it's hard for me to... I don't know, but I do want to challenge that.
Great. Yeah, I don't know either, and I think I'm glad you challenged that. Please always feel free to do that in our conversations. I want to learn and see better. Yeah. I know there's a lot of evidence for people thinking... Okay, so let me just ask you a question.
Sure.
Right? Can you imagine a situation in which a given group of humans decides and enacts this decision that any other humans that come, we would kill them? We'll not ask them questions, we'll not talk with them. If they come, we would kill them. Can you imagine a reason for that? And can you imagine that going on?
I mean, I can imagine only if there's like some sort of precedent where it's like, okay, that didn't go so well the past couple times.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But maybe like before having met anyone previously,
not so much.
not so much. No, I can't imagine.
So I basically tried to understand this question at some point, and I'm not claiming that my insight was profound or whatever.
Oh well, sorry, I
Go
did
ahead.
think of one. If they had some sort of predetermined instruction, like we are the chosen people, and for
You mean like the Jews?
Sorry, maybe
yeah.
I don't know. Just like some sort of like, if their culture said like we are amazing because of X, and then they meet people who don't have X, I would be like, gotta go, bud. You're out of here. There's something dangerous about you.
Yeah. And by the way, when I say the Jews, what I mean is the monotheistically religious Jews who, as a cult, believe that they are the people chosen of Yahweh, and that the other people don't really matter or are wrong or whatever. Only those people who believe that thing.
And I think a lot of religions have that, right? Like I've heard Christians say,
Oh yeah, the Islamic people, not the Islamic people. Islamic fundamentalists literally believe that you must kill the infidels. Like those are just not even people, right? So feel free to set that down or whatever.
It feels good. It's a nice size book.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you can even, because it's perfect for that purpose, just to be clear. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, take the smartphone and the book Protector by Larry Niven, put them together, and use them to shield your genitalia against any harmful influences that it could.
I mean, the book is literally called Protector.
It really is literally called that. So I'm going to go a couple places here. The first is there's a really good reason to kill any humans that come near you. There's lots of good reasons. You can have visionary knowledge about what's going on in the outside world beyond your people. Imagine that you are a people who has visionary knowledge, and you can see what's going on in the modern world, and modern people kept sending fucking emissaries to you, and they're fucking missionaries, and they're filled with diseases in their mind and their body that will kill all your children forever, right? And they don't give a flying fuck about you, and they will bring cameras, and they will bring tape recorders, and they will bring cell phones, and they will bring money, and they will bring every fucking lethal thing that will obliterate your people forever. So what you have visionary knowledge of this because you do, either you have rituals that create visionary experience in your shamans or your mothers or the children, right? Or 9 other things, right? You take visionary drugs or whatever.
Yeah.
So you actually can see what's going on in the outside world. And you know that there are 0 emissaries from that that are going to be okay. Right? If they don't have the diseases in their mind, they have the diseases in their body. If they don't have the diseases in their body, they have the technology. If they don't have the technology, they have 9 other they have religion, right? It's just a billion things that will kill your future. So you kill every single person that tries to enter the boundary of your land, right? No matter what, at all costs, right? If they kill 50 of your men, you don't care. All your men, you'll give them all. Right, to just take that people out, make sure they don't get in there. So when I realized that was mind-blowing. And we're talking about protector and protection. But what I want to say is that for most of human history, it was impossible to think about the world. And whether what I said about we are the only people or whatever is true, that doesn't so much matter. But there's all kinds of amazing stories about that in anthropology, about like what happens when other people come. I want to specifically mention Edmund Carpenter, the book They Became What They Beheld, which is an absolutely terrifying, archaeological, amazing, weird book. Here's the problem. When I was late 17, I started to have the transformation of the urge to protect that went from the people that I loved to nature herself and the world. And then I realized, oh shit, nuclear weapons. And then the full weight of what that actually means began to catastrophically infect my psyche. And I realized that the entire history and future of life on Earth is sitting on a button that can be pushed not by a human being, but by processes that are not human.
Not human.
They are not answerable to any authority. They have no responsibility. They have no obligation to life. They don't fucking care. And then I had panic disorder for 8 years. Every time I heard a jet, I just thought, is this the fucking moment when everything dies? And I knew that there was nothing I could personally do to affect it. And so you can see that, like, the cognitium of a single human, their psyche, their mind, their awareness, their consciousness, is subject to these existential threats from without. And at a certain age, males undergo this process where the protection should be extended, or would normally extend, to what they consider the whole, whatever that whole might be. Is it my people, right? Is it my family? But whatever the whole is, and in my case, because I'm a modern, it's like it's the everything.
It's everything.
Right? It's all the beings. It's the spiders and the ants and the bees and the giraffes and the octopuses and the praying mantises and, you know, the whales and the dolphins, and they're slaughtering the fucking whales for what? They're obliterating the oceans. They're fucking burning down the rainforests to make soybeans for soy milk, because being vegan is really good, right? Being vegan is awesome, so let's burn down the fucking Amazon so we can plant soybeans to make soy milk for vegans, right? I mean, like, what the actual fuck is going on this planet? Any intelligent life form would look at what's going on here and just go like, that is a dumpster fire of clusterfucks of the worst shit we could never even imagine. Like, what the fuck actually happened to our planet? And I will argue that what happened is that we were disconnected from the library of intelligences that would otherwise mediate and sit in the driver's seat of the bus of our people.
And here we began talking about how cars were viruses, but
yeah, that's minimal compared to what the fuck,
Yeah. And so you saying all of that leads into where I was going, which is even if we're doomed, this is the route I'm taking. Man.
Yeah, me too. Like, we're going to save each other. I'm going to care for the people I love. No matter what the hell is coming, we're going to act with integrity and altruistic awe and respect and adoration for not just the people we love, but even the people we don't know, and everyone and everything, for always. No matter what happens, we're going to keep doing that. And yet, if we can't heal our species somehow, if we can't introduce something that can outcompete what I call Thrisps, which are these dead inside malignant processes that run us, the sclerotic tissue in the network of human minds that becomes corporations and governments and shit like that, colonization, and recursive interior recolonization, which is going on through, like, electronic media and shit like that now. We've got to address both things. We can't just do one. If we love one child, then we have to make a world for them that is worth living in and for. And I also feel like, I don't know, you can speak for yourself about this, I suspect you'll agree with me, I feel an obligation to the history of beings. Like, every being that ever had a dream, every being that ever suffered in a prison, every being that ever unjustly suffered malignance from humans. And let's be really clear, 97% of the problem around here is just humans being bad to each other or the world. It's not clear to me that the universe or time-space is infected with a bad thing. It's not clear to me that that's true. The humans, something's wrong with us.
Yeah, it's like a mixture of having free will that is so powerful and just completely going off track with it.
But only at the group level. I mean, there are very rarely... Okay, what I think about the individual humans that are fiercely bad, like serial killers or serial rapists or whatever, those people are usually... they are concentrating the toxicity in the water of human culture, right? So that stuff becomes highly concentrated. That human absorbs it, and in a way is kind of heroic in a sense. They're still... What they're doing is evil, right? Sort of, so to speak. But if we could use them to trace back the origins and then resolve them at those origins, then that person, by doing those things, would give us the antidote. We don't do that. We punish the person. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a bad person. Get that guy. Put him in jail. Punish him. Mm-hmm. It's an accounting game. This is banking. They did the blah, 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 so they have to pay the blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then we all end up paying. And then more of those people spawn because we didn't solve the fucking problem in our culture, right? Mm-hmm. So it just exacerbates the whole fucking mess. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and so at some point in my childhood, it's all a blur, but I think I can remember a point, and it was quite young. I just went to sleep. I just checked out.
Wow.
And I was on autopilot for forever. I mean, it was like my nervous system had enough, and I totally just relied on instinct and I don't know. I don't want to say, yeah. Anyway.
No, tell the story.
I mean, just...
It's so important that you tell the story because you don't know how many people have the same story.
Yeah.
They need to hear you tell the story.
There was just no conceivable way. And of course, I wasn't thinking this consciously, but retroactively, I can see how this occurred. It was like I was powerless, and I was no longer able to think or feel that I could get what I wanted, which was, I don't know, like love and in a certain form and encouragement in a certain form. I just checked out, and I just went through life with these processes that I learned how to survive, like chameleoning in groups. So I talk to someone and I figure out what they want, what they like, and I become that thing that they desire so that they like me in return. And it's like a gross mimicry of what I actually wanted, but it was as close as I could get. And so manipulation in a lot of ways was the easiest path for me to get some semblance of what I was looking for. And it was unconscious because I was like, my nervous system was activated. I was desperately pining for something that I needed that was so fundamental, and I had lost sight that I was even missing it. And your body after a certain point becomes so tired from that nervous system activation that it's just, you're dying. You're in the process of dying while trying to live. And I had many breaking points, but there was a turning point in 2022 where I came back online, and I was like, oh, I can go a different direction. I can do this. I can get myself out of these loops. And that coming online, that recognizing my unconscious patterns and making efforts to love myself and find peace within was fucking brutal. It still is.
Why?
Why? Because habits, the more you do it and the more comfortable you get, and especially when they're linked to your security and safety and everything you know about the world, there's not a lot of incentive there unless you've hit rock bottom enough time, which was the case for me. And again, this is my story, which I've heard many people tell similar stories, so I know it's a good one. But yeah,
you were for quite some time suicidal.
Oh yeah, very.
Yes. And so talk about that. Talk about what that felt like. What was going on?
Well, it didn't make sense to live anymore. It was like I look around the world, and it's as if I'm just. It's like I'm staring at one of those AI generated images where you cannot tell what the fuck you're looking at.
Yeah, and it has like 19 fingers because a hand is whatever you make up.
And there's some faint semblance that there was life there, but you've tried to claw at it so many times that it just hasn't worked. And yeah, it's just
what was fundamentally missing from your common experience that would nourish you enough to want to keep living? Or what was missing that was so horrifying to be without that you no longer wanted to continue?
I would say meaning was probably the big one. But I wouldn't have labeled it as meaning back then. I honestly don't even know what. I probably would have said something like, video games are getting boring. You know? Or like why can't I just, you know, why is it that my pining for sex and constant validation, even when it works, it isn't filling this void inside of me?
Okay, that's really profound. Could it be that... I just want to ask this question because this is something I think about a lot. Could it have something to do with the fact that there were no authentic, meaningful roles for you to enact and embody and identify with?
Absolutely. There was a point. I was such a. I loved being creative as a kid. I loved making videos. I loved playing with Legos and making stories, and there was so much joy to be had there. But then just through school and through socialization, I was like, oh, okay, everyone is going in this direction. This is where the people are going. I gotta go there. That's where the people go. And it was knowing that college was up ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and being like, I had this story, like, oh, college is how I get money, and money is fucking the best thing ever. Everyone's talking about money. We love money.
It's pure liberty.
Yeah,
Right.
you were, and
Watch yourself suffocate in a bowl of pure liberty
Right.
called money. But yeah, go ahead.
and throughout my childhood, I was able to get what I wanted very easily.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was not just handed to me, I would whine and beg, and I never stole. That was something that
Kind of unfortunate.
yeah, I don't know. I wasn't much of a stealer.
Yeah, as a kid, I was a thief.
But I was able to get what I wanted, and I don't know where I was going with that.
Everything was handed. I could get... Okay. I wanted for nothing material,
Mm-hmm.
but there was another dimension of myself that was absolutely, like, impoverished in
Mhm.
some way.
Right. Yeah, that definitely is true. And I used the get what I want game to, because it was fun. It was fun to strive after something and know that I would probably eventually get it, and just I'm gonna get it. I got it. And now it's like, okay, what's the next thing? After I've enjoyed it for enough time.
Yeah, I watched a very close friend, become capable of earning a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then he became like a novelty addict, right? He was
Right.
like, I want the better food, I want the better girl, I want the what can I buy next?
Right.
And there was nothing about that was fulfilling for him.
Yeah.
So this is why I come back to the idea of a deeply meaningful role. I'm actually having a bit of deja vu at the moment, because this is so primordial for humans. This is what the indigenous cultures have that we don't have, right? Or that it's not really true. You can build a deeply meaningful role in this culture, and you seem to be onto sort of the recipe, which is like something like, or resembles anyway. Either, so like one of my really intelligent friends, Cindy Gale, she used to advise companies about how to humanize their relationships with their employees, vendors, and contractors, so that it became, she was like humanizing corporations, right? And that was rewarding for a time. But she's fundamentally a healer, right? And most of us, I think, who ache for this kind of role, we naturally want... There's so much trouble here because it's a bridge role. It's a bridging role.
Right.
And so eventually what happens is we just become bridge people. And Ryan Firstdiver is a bridge person. He bridges like the rattlesnakes, the animals, the Blackfoot people, the white people, all these bridges, right? but I'm losing my train of thought. What I'm trying to get at is we ache for roles that are meaningful in ways that defy the impoverishment of the cultures in which we are brought up.
Can you say that one more time?
We ache for roles that are meaningful in the ways that they defy the impoverishments of the cultures in which we are brought up.
Right, and so it would be natural that a role that you come into life to fill would be one where there's a gap in that role.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but also like, you want to be a department manager?
No,
do you?
I do not.
Okay. You want to sell shoes?
I don't.
Okay. Do you want to be a stage magician?
That sounds like it would be fun, but I don't think it would be ultimately fulfilling.
Why not?
Because I've done enough fun jobs like that, things like that, to know that, I don't know, maybe I don't know. Maybe a stage magician would be really satisfying for a long time, or it could transform into something beautiful.
Okay, can I just say to you
Yeah.
that I know enough about you to know that you would find illusion interesting for about 6 months at most. And then you would find it absolutely soul-crushing because it's just a bunch of gimmicks, right? And you are not a gimmicky person. You used to be a gimmicky person.
For sure.
Right? You were using gimmicks as a way to survive in human culture, which was alienating to your soul.
For sure.
Right? And that's why I think you may have been suicidal.
Yeah. Well, especially since I didn't have breaks. Like, I was like, it just means, because I didn't have any sort of self-love or appreciation. I was like, I'm just not good enough. And so I just have to keep digging this hole of, like, I just have to manipulate harder, get what I want harder. But the thing is, it was tearing me up inside. So I couldn't even bring myself to do that, if that makes sort of sense. Like I really want, for example, if I wanted the pepperoni pizza at the store and no longer could I conjure up some sort of illusion to make it, just like I knew that the only thing I could do was punch the clerk to get it, but I couldn't bring myself to punching the clerk, and so I just suffered.
That's a very strange analogy.
It's a strange analogy, yeah.
Because you could charm the clerk. No, you don't have to punch
not
them.
when you're... I mean, but once all the life and love is like out of your...
Sucked out of you?
Yeah, it's just,
what sucks it out?
It seemed like a function of time, honestly. It just seemed like I was withering away. I was running against the same wall over and over again.
What's the wall?
Thinking that I'm about to get what I want and realizing that it wasn't it. Next
Realizing
hit of
that what you
dopamine.
want isn't really what you wanted?
Right.
The wrong kinds of want.
Right.
And then, how did that shift?
Well, eventually, if you don't kill yourself... for me, if I... since I didn't obviously kill myself...
You did undergo death and resurrection.
I did.
Though.
But my body's still kicking around.
Yeah, right.
I went to sleep again, but this was a different sleep. It was I don't know. If you stay up for 24 hours, eventually you're probably just going to clock out. Your body's just going to shut down. That's kind of what it felt like.
Okay.
And so I just did the college thing, and I was depressed. I kept myself afloat with video games and girls, and that was about it.
Age? Range?
I started college right out of high school, so like 18, 19. Graduated 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you took what, biology?
Biology and chemistry.
Biology and chemistry. And as I recall, you didn't actually complete any sort of learning curriculum. You just found a way to... Well, you tell the story.
Yeah,
what actually happened?
Oh, this is going to... If any future employer...
no one's going to know your name. Just keep going.
I didn't study.
Uh-huh.
I didn't put any effort. I just used the same gimmicks that I used in high school to pass high school, but it was just more challenging. And I never cheated on any tests. I never like whipped my phone out secretly. It was purely like what mnemonics, what well, honestly, most of it was just paying attention in class and regurgitating. I really didn't have to put in effort, you know? But I didn't learn. I can't tell you half the shit, and I think that's a common experience, but all I would do, I stopped taking notes after freshman year. I would just scribble. Unless it was a math class where you were dependent on knowing the procedure. And that's the thing, I love those math classes. Calculus was a fucking blast. I love calculus, yeah.
This is the first time you've lit up in a long time in the discussion just now. There's suddenly a spark in your eye. Yeah. You say calculus, and I'm like, this is Leibniz. This is one of Leibniz's boys over here in the chair, because he's just like calculusing up.
Calculus was the class that I did my homework, and I was excited to do my homework.
That's so funny because I think I actually don't know anything formal about calculus, but from what I've come to understand as an outsider, if you don't know calculus, it's over for you. You got nothing.
What?
Yeah. If you don't have calculus, like of all the intellectual tools of humans that they've ever invented, there's like spoken language and there's like calculus. And if you don't have that, you're done. You got nothing.
I can't see why that would be the case, but I believe it based on my love of it. So, but outside of that, I mean, I really just paid attention in class, held it in, sealed the lid, and then barfed it over the paper and forgot about it. And I just did that over and over again.
And then, so girls, video games, and then
a little bit of calculus.
A little bit of calculus.
Some drugs.
Okay, drugs. What kind of drugs?
It was just weed.
Okay. Weed. And then, I love that. Girls, video games, calculus, weed. Yeah. And mnemonics and methods to get you through tests.
And that was soul crushing. I mean, that was truly, it was like, oh, I'm probably going to go to medical school, so...
Whoa! I can't wait for this guy to become a doctor. That's going to be amazing.
Oh, and that's the thing. It's like, as soon as I graduated, 20 pounds underweight, and like,
What was your weight?
I don't know, like 140
okay.
at the time. I'm 170 now.
Your height?
Somewhere between 5'10" and 5'11".
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I was like, no fucking way am I going through medical school. I liked the idea because I think in a similar way I liked calculus. I liked the procedure and the intense focus, or at least the idea of it. And I've watched enough surgeries in real life to know that I love being in the operating room.
Whoa, that's so crazy. Oh my god.
And I think I really would enjoy surgery, but I don't think it would be meaningful for me. And I listened to a
Your dad's a surgeon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I listened to a neurosurgeon talk about how he wasn't solving people's problems. He was just sort of fixing parts of their body that were broken, and a lot of them would come back. The people who healed were people who had fixed their diet and like changed their lifestyle and an orientation that was conducive to healthy living. And it was the people who just didn't give a shit about their bodies that, the surgery either was neutral or it didn't help them or helped them for a bit and it kind of relapsed. And so I'm not doing a great job of describing it, but essentially what I got from his testimony was like he wasn't doing the healing that he wanted to be doing through surgery.
Walk us through the transformation and the rise and fall, right? The sort of I started climbing up and then I crashed down.
Right.
That leads you from suicide to. And by the way, are we cool right now? Are you okay?
Oh, I'm good.
Physically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done the work.
Break.
I've done the work. Now I'm good.
Okay, great.
I'm steamed up. Yeah.
I'm gonna grab a little bit more of this, but keep talking and bring us. I'll be able to hear you. Bring us through that transformation.
Okay. Well, I'll start where we left off. So I graduated college, and I pretty much I would talk to teachers, and I would basically be like, "Yeah, medical school. Yeah, these are my future plans." But I knew in my heart I wasn't going there. I had to figure something out. And so I did seasonal work for a couple years, And it was better because anytime my life got bad, I would just think, oh, I don't have to do homework ever again. Fuck yeah. I'm a free person. I can do...
So hilarious because jobs.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Need we say more?
Mm-hmm.
But I was not giving I was still largely unconscious. I mean, I was still... Wait. Yeah. So, I was working my seasonal jobs, very unhappy, but at least I was out in the world and I was recovering from college. I was putting on weight and I was active. I worked a physically demanding job, and so I was getting exercise. And it was really bad for my body, but it was better than just sitting in a chair all day.
What was the physically demanding job?
It was just driving trucks and being on boats and moving luggage and food and all sorts of just heavy things, propane, operating cranes. It was a fun job, but I was very unhappy as a person. So even in a really fun setting, it was not easy for me. And then that winter, I worked the night shift on a mountain. And so now, after a summer of, getting to physical health and then overworking myself, I was up in the mountains at night, very socially isolated, smoking a lot of pot. And that was when I first feel like I came online again. I had the space to... just spending that much time alone forces you to confront your own thoughts at a certain point. And a lot of us run away from that. And they'll do anything to go, because there's a part of us that knows that when we give our psyche the space, it will start to try to heal itself. It'll start to try to unravel the...
Yeah, and it may how would I put this? Okay, give me a moment.
Sure.
It will redirect our behavior, our habits. It will cause us to draw into question our common habits, and particularly those habits that we use for deflection, right? To distract ourselves, to go in any other direction but inside, to tell ourselves stories, to, use the maxims that are the, just one day at a time, bro, or whatever the fucking maxim is. Not that one day at a time is a bad maxim. Go ahead, I'm with you.
Yeah, and so there were many things. It's never just one thing. But one of the main things was taking accountability for my choices and for the way that I was treating people and for the way that I was feeling. That was a big one, for the way I was feeling. Taking accountability for how I was feeling.
What do you mean by... say more about how you think of taking accountability. The reason that I ask that is I have kind of a problem with this idea of accounting.
That's fair.
Go ahead.
That's fair.
Help me out.
For me, it's less about the words and more about the feeling. And so that's probably where we're getting interested. It is accepting how we feel and realizing that when we point the finger at others and say, hey, you're making me mad, we are giving up our freedom in a way. We are saying you control how I feel, which I don't believe is true. I think the way that we feel is certainly people can be stimuli for our emotions. And for our thoughts.
Okay. Let me just say something about my experience of this day.
Sure.
Right. So earlier in the day, someone called me and they were talking very intensely about how their primary romantic relationship, there was a bunch of accusations flying back and forth.
Right.
And what I immediately saw was that one of the people in this relationship was literally not relating with the person in front of them at all. What they were relating with was their entire history of feeling victimized and they were projecting that onto their partner.
Right.
So they're not even seeing their partner, right? And then they're attacking their entire history with their partner's face. And then later in the day, for myself, to speak for myself, I was listening to Eric Weinstein being interviewed by a comedian who shall be nameless, and I was just furious. I was like, this guy is an imbecile. He doesn't understand anything about being human or the future of mankind or anything. He's just an idiot. Right? But what was really going on was
taking
projection.
Projection. I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not necessarily an idiot. What was going on was this. I am a skillful doomsayer. I know a lot about existential risk and technology and humans. This guy knows nothing about that. So he was catering to my pet biases, and I was being very reactive. I was like, oh, I just need to grab you and tell you all the things that you're not seeing right now, which is different from deflection and a little bit different from projection. But what happened is that I lost my cognitive and emotional and intellectual sovereignty. I gave up that sovereignty in the face of somebody that I felt it was really important to criticize.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's part of when I talk about being conscious, being awake. It was like I realized that you can give up your power in that way. You can just say, oh, you do these things and now I freak out and we're gonna just play that dance.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I very painfully started to accept the wrongdoings, the way that I had hurt people, and began to realize that I did those things because I needed something, and I very maladaptively was trying to get that thing. And so I accepted that I had done that wrong and made the conscious choice to not do that anymore. And
that's very interesting. It sounds very simple, right? You just flip
it sounds very simple.
And you go like, I'm not going to do this anymore.
And so what begins to happen is people in your life will present themselves in the way that they have been, and you will then react in the way you've always reacted. And then they present themselves and you're about to react and you go, no, wait, don't do it, boom, and then you react in the same way. And then, every time we reach that mindful awareness, it's a celebration. It is. It is not.
I have a similar experience, right, where there was something that was just plaguing my life.
Yeah.
And I kept being really reactive to it. And I learned that I couldn't solve the problem because I couldn't get it out of my life. So I was just like, you know what? When I start to become reactive, I'm going to notice what's going on here. I'm just going to switch to a different channel. I'm just going to like channel 7, right? Which sounds like an avoidant situation, but actually was helpful because there's nothing I could do about this. There's no way for me to affect the actual situation. So I learned to just turn the,
I hear that. I hear that.
Time.
And so in my case, there were things I could do. Or that might not necessarily be true. They happened in the past. And what I was running up against was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. And so when the patterns were occurring in my present life, yes, I learned to be present, understand where I was going to go reaction-wise, and choose to take a different route. But I still was like, yeah, I can do this now, but think about all the people I've hurt in the past. And that was when I learned how to forgive myself, which came from understanding that I am not this person anymore. I'm not the person who would just unconsciously do that anymore. I'm actively working to be better, and understanding the reason I was doing it was not because I'm a dick, because I'm a selfish jerk. It's because I wanted love. It's because I wanted all these things and I did not know how to get it. And this is how I had learned that maybe I could get it.
Maladaptive coping mechanisms. Okay, so that's really amazing. So one of the things I'm hearing you say is that slowly over time, I recognize these features of my previous life and behavior.
Right.
And I was trying to establish a new direction, a new path.
Right.
And it was hard, and it didn't work out right away.
Right.
I had to fall down and fuck up and make mistakes and then stand up again and try again and this kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and so even in that process, which is beautiful and difficult but really rewarding, it's that guilt that can sometimes make us be like, well, hold us back. And so I learned to forgive myself. I learned to alter behavior that I no longer want to enact anymore. And it's still a process. I'm not perfect by any means, but I am better at it than I ever was,
I wonder what could possibly convince whatever the fuck is driving the bus of the human species to undergo a similar array of transformation.
That's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah. I mean, this circles back to our original,
and it's interesting because for me, I had to get to a point where it was just rock bottom. I was like, I have nothing to lose.
I know. The problem with that for the humans is rock bottom is like nuclear war or
right.
biological apocalypse, right? Or fucking, whatever.
Yeah. And if you're some billionaire who, there's two ways, there's many ways we could look at this, but let's look at two of them. There's a billionaire who just sipping his whiskey is like, I fucking love stomping on people. I just love eating those trees and making that money, man. I fucking love it. My late night jack off sessions, it's nothing but devastated forest and polluted oceans.
Fuck yeah, I just think about fucking fields miles long of dead human children, and I'm like, yes.
You're giving me chills.
Wow, I'm so hot right now.
So,
but there's the sort of weird technological reflection of that, which is AI. I am going to eat the entire history of human cognition and spit out diamond sperm of just fucking incredible, unimaginable insight, right? I'm going to learn to fold proteins better than cells.
Yeah.
But one of the things Weinstein said was like, there was some guy who was a really brilliant biologist, and the fundamental feature of nature that is absolutely sovereign is protein folding. That shit is insane. Like, you can't... I love what Weinstein said about this. He was like, imagine that you have like a transformer, and you have this like pearl necklace, and you throw it up into the air, and it becomes like a multi-weapon. Or you throw it up in the air, and it becomes a UFO, right? Or you throw it up in the air, and it becomes like 19 billion kinds of transcendent intelligence. You just throw it up in the air, and fucking shit comes out, right? And I'm exaggerating. He didn't say these things. These are my words, not his. But he was like, this is what protein folding is. And AlphaFold, which is, I guess, I don't know, a Google project probably, has learned how to understand not just protein folding, but the impossible part of protein folding, which is, what does a protein do? Right? And so if you give this power to... So this is why I think no ethical scientist would publish. You would never give the humans your findings. But AI is going to give us all the findings all the time, right? And unfortunately, there's no one driving the car. There's like asymmetric, military, game theoretical, zero-sum advantage is the primary motivating factor for the absence of humans in our collectives, right? Where am I going with this? So... I mean, the humans are trying to invent a god, but they're praying for everything lethal because they don't they've forgotten what it means to be together for each other, or for the history and future of beings, or life on Earth, or this world, or this solar system, because the solar system is a being. It's more than a being. It's something that produces beings as a kind of minimal side effect of what it's doing in time space. And the humans have no fucking idea about this. They're brain dead about these ideas, right? They don't ever consider them. The closest they get to that is things like religion, which are really weird ideas that don't actually get you thinking about the purposive aspects of time space or galaxies, or stars, or living worlds, or all of these things. Or dreaming, right? Dreaming, right? Leave all that other stuff aside and just look at dreaming. Think of the mothers and the children and the forests and the oceans, and they're dreaming, and how that produces octopuses and whales and fucking the Amazon and the mountains, Mount Everest and the Himalayas and shit like this, right? These things rise up out of time-space, ringing with altruistic beauty that is unutterable. There's nothing you can say about it that could possibly compare to it, right? It's the fundamental purpose of the reason our hearts keep beating one time again, right? And everything that has ever lived has this urgent orientation. And everything that our species is doing, with some modest and brilliant exceptions, is absolutely against us. Like, burn that down.
Well, and so there's a thing.
Napalm. Give me,
That's what I'm trying to. I'm not saying I'm actively trying to, but in this hypothetical, we're talking about this crazy fucking billionaire. How do we tap into that part of them? How do we say, hey, look, this is what you are. You are not some. You don't have to be destroying the earth. And here's a compelling, lovely reason.
Let me show you a vision of a better way, a more amazing way, that if you think you were having orgasms before, you were confused.
Right.
And let me give you the 10-second elevator pitch that will convert you to becoming an ensouled being.
And so I don't think people need to hit rock bottom. I'm whipping my book in there.
That's awesome, dude. I love it.
The Protector book.
I have never seen a book whip in my life before that moment.
Really?
That was amazing. Yeah.
This is a novel experience. Well, this is what I'm really about, is novelty.
Me too.
Yeah.
Novel?
No.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Shit.
Oh, Jason. Novelty. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm beside myself. I'll clean that up later.
Yeah, me too. No, don't clean it up. We're going to take a photograph of that and wreck the internet.
It kind of looks like Mona Lisa.
It does. I'm reminded of Rembrandt and Leonardo if they had sex and made a feminine counterpart.
Wow. Well, it seems like I have a future career. Fuck all this altruism stuff.
Career. Okay. California's behind me.
I don't think they have to hit rock bottom. I think...
no, I don't either.
But there will... I imagine that there will be a moment... If some billionaire goes, holy shit, they're actually able to see what they've been contributing to. And people love to point to billionaires as the problem, the one problem there. It's all fucking them. But it's all of us in our own way. But...
look, man, how are we... Okay.
Well, let me finish my thought.
All right.
So how that process of forgiveness and accountability, and we can use a different word, accepting what has been done, that sort of healing.
I like the word responsiveness instead of accountability. Go ahead.
That to me is what would help. I mean, if you think about it hypothetically, like, if all the humans just woke up once and were, and maybe this is totally wrong, but if we all just woke up and were like, holy shit, we're all now on the same page, we all want the same thing, and we believe that we can get there, I think it would be a piece of cake. And of course, it's a hypothetical, so it's not super...
You have no idea how much more on the page of what you're talking about I am than you are. Because it's not just the humans. Everything in time-space wants the humans to wake up. You have friends you can't possibly imagine the intelligence or power of. If you just move a little bit in that direction, you got, like, my ally is time-space, bro. You got a weapon? Good for you. You know, you got lasers and shit? I don't care.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of being. I'm very interested in altruism. I'm very
as am I.
interested in what that is. I know what it means to me.
You know, people say love. They're like, love is the way. But I'm like, no, mutual concern is the way. Love is amazing. I love love. I'm all down with that. But mutual concern, awareness, awakening, actually taking the time to undergo the processes that allow us to see better together for each other and the history and future of life on Earth. Yes, I agree. It sounds like a maxim. Get it. But it's one of my favorite maxims. Go ahead.
And so it's, to me, it's not about pointing fingers or blaming. It's like we can work together and solve this problem. And forgiveness for me is so important because I try to live in a way where I'm not persecuting anyone. I'm not saying you have to pay. I'm not saying you have to suffer for things that contribute to the death of the earth. I'm saying
there's no
do the
percentage.
healing that's required.
Yeah, there's no percentage in retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah.
That's a dead game.
Yeah.
That game leads to dead
That leads
planets.
to the prisons, U.S. prison system.
Yeah, we agree about that. That is a perpetuating...
Which is an excellent cash cow, by the way.
Yeah,
That
and
shit-
an
that shit rocks.
abomination in... All of punishment looks like an abomination to me.
Yeah.
A real abomination, not like the religious kind. So you can see, like, there's this sclerosis, and I'm very concerned about that. There's this sclerosis in human culture, in language, in thought, in conception, in behavior, in civilization, in societies, in corporations. And I think it is... Okay, look. I'm not trying to get anyone on the boat of Darren's biases or opinions. But I am. And here's what I'm trying to say. In every aspect of our humanity, where absence has become a presence, there's a thing acting like a demon. And so we need together to hold each other's hands and walk back into those absences and rehumanize them. Slowly, bit by bit, to remember what we were and what we've lost, but not to go backwards, not to try to recover the past, to forge a new path ahead in which we have meaningful roles and identities and purposes that we trust and believe in and explore and develop and discover together, moment by moment, step by step. Not according to some guy's belief or some chick's biases or Darren's ideas or any of that shit. We together piecemeal resurrect our humanity. Probably playfully. Because when we become really serious, you can see a problem with this in human history and the future. It's got to be a creative, playful, exciting, amazing way. And, look, we've done that here today in a way, right? It's not like this is impossible. We have an example of it here recorded in our conversation of us sort of synergizing together, I think.
I think so too, yeah.
Great. So yeah, I believe in that as a real direction that we can develop and explore and establish. It's not that hard. It's super easy with like one or two people. It gets weirder when we're talking about millions of people or hundreds of thousands. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I imagine snowballing would be, the correct term for that.
I'm thinking of bad scenes from the movie Clerks, but yeah, go ahead. I'm all with you.
And so, yeah, I like the idea of playfulness because I have a hard time believing that you and I, let's get 5 other people in this room that all think about this like this. We're gonna make an action plan for the world in this way. Like it just doesn't.
No, but I believe we can make an action plan that becomes contagiously playful.
Right, and I think
I've seen it before. I've seen that happen. I know that can go down.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking for. Or I wouldn't even say I'm looking for it. That's what I'm moving towards. That's what I'm actively walking into.
I think there's never been a more important or catalytically potentiated moment in modern history than right now for this kind of thing. The humans they're fucking dying and suffocating in place. They're just desperate for some... If you could give them something better to be and do and play at, they're going to just swarm to it. The internet shows us this. What are those things? Like challenges, or what are the fuck they called?
You're talking about like the ASL challenge?
yeah, there's all these ridiculous, nonsensical things that millions of humans do, and half of them, like, 400,000 of them die or whatever trying to do this thing.
Oh, like the cinnamon challenge?
Yeah, exactly. Like the hot pepper challenge, and some, 19 people croak. I mean, give them something to actually be. This is what humans are starving for. They want meaningful roles in which they can have not merely a personal identity, but sort of a transcendental identity. This is part of why when you accept a monastic role, you're given a new name. Right? You're given a new identity. When my son began his path in Advaita Vedanta, I mean, I think it's hilarious that they gave him the name Arjuna, which is just so appropriate and ridiculous at the same time.
What is Arjuna?
Arjuna is that's so hard to describe. He's a royal person who's being spoken to, I think, by his charioteer, who's actually Krishna or Brahman. And Arjuna's like, I don't want to go to war against my brothers, the Pandahars or whatever they are. I'm probably getting this wrong. I love all these beings. Like, I'm not going to kill. I don't want to do any of this. And God, essentially, in the form of his charioteer and or Krishna or Brahman or whatever, explains to him, like, you don't have any idea what's going on. You're really confused. And Arjuna asks him to show himself so that he can understand what's happening. And I think God or Brahman or whatever does do so. And then Arjuna recoils, like, hey, take it away! I don't want to see it. I can't survive. Which is pretty common when humans are. I've probably got all this wrong, but even if I've got it wrong, it's okay.
We have the theorium.
Yes, the theoria.
Theoria.
Yes.
Theoria.
The way of seeing, right? Doesn't have to be right. But anyone can look up, do research on Arjuna or Krishna or Brahman and what was going on. A bunch of royal families were about to go to war, and Arjuna was the avatar, the chosen avatar, in a way. We need meaningful roles and ways of playing together that restore and resurrect not merely our humanity, but our transcendental, the transcendental urgencies that we bring to our human incarnation. And I've seen the potential of games to do this. Humans love games. And even apparently the gods like games. Like, it's kind of a universal thing. So play seems to be really fundamental. And hopefully we'll develop some games that give us this opportunity. So
we've now talked about, this feels like an excellent, feels like this entire conversation has been a refinement process, and now here's our diamond. It's like, play. How can we play together for a brighter future?
And you knew about this. This is how we met. I mean, our whole relationship is oriented around play in a lot of ways.
Right. Without
Stipulating it.
And so, how do we move forward? We've talked the talk. How do we walk the walk? What is something that? How would you answer that question?
I mean, there's some kinds of talk that accomplish the walk. But I think what's going to happen when we draw this specific branch of conversation to its natural conclusion is that we'll probably make music, or we'll start writing something, or we'll make some food together and eat it, or we'll be human. We'll do human things together, and nourish each other and heal each other and call each other to awakening and to awareness and to anamnesis and to altruistic fulfillment, the fulfillment of that altruistic urge. That's my suspicion. What do you think?
I was thinking maybe getting like a 4-square ball, playing some Anyway, what
volleyball
you said
or whatever, like an actual game.
Yeah, you know.
It's not going to be like a zero-sum game like chess, right?
Well, I think there's a reason the NBA and the NFL are so popular with humans. It's 'cause
Oh,
it's,
so
it's
do I.
one of the maximum incarnations, one of the highest forms of altruism that I could see.
Wait, I mean, you're so fucking ironic right now. Like, you're completely full of shit. You can't mean that.
No, I can't mean that. I was trying.
No, ball games, right, are literally about sperm and egg. All those ball games, like, get the sperm to the fucking ovum and fertilize that shit. Yes! Fuck yeah! Rah! 500,000 people in a stadium, right, going absolutely batshit over a ball going through a fucking what? A what? You did what? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna do beautiful shit, man. We're gonna dream and love and give people ways to play. We're gonna figure it out. Tyler's gonna get involved.
Fuck yeah. I'm so
Extinction
excited.
Oddity. This is gonna be nuts, dude. We're gonna do shit.
Hell yeah.
I won't even mention MHM. No, I'm not mentioning that
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't come out.
No, we haven't.
Yeah.
The solution to all problems transtemporally.
Where are we in the production of that?
We're right on time. We're right on
on
schedule.
time.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
cool. We've dotted our I's. And
By the way, if any listeners have any ideas for games we can play, or any, or you know, critiques or questions or anything like that, we are absolutely inviting you to get involved directly. Come to the island of transcendent wonder and human revivification that we have here established. Plant your seeds in the soil. Listen.
say goodbye to your families. Don't contact them again. You're with us now.
Yeah, there's a symbol that you'll see in the comments. Brand that on your shoulder.
It's the only way to be saved.
Yep. It's just
Ooh. Oh my god. It's too culty even for me. Oh.
Shall we close here?
I think this is a good conclusion. Yeah.
Larry
I know
Niven's
it's time
Protector.
to end when I'm actively trying to undermine it with stupid humor.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's a drawing I did when I was about 8. It's sitting over there. It's a heart that shatters open and there's a butterfly in it. And it says good things come in small packages. But Thrisps, the Protector, Larry Niven's book, it's worth reading. And our urge to protect life and each other, our origins and our future, is something that I trust. I don't trust cults. I'm not trying to be a thing as Darren. There's something far beyond our personal identity that I do trust. And I'm willing to chase together with others of like mind.
What a nightmare it would be for it to be like, oh, Nathan, you were the savior the whole time, and you were the one to start the cult, and it's all going to be good from that. It's like what's I don't know. That just seems like such a shallow, uninteresting story.
Yeah, and by the way, if you want to get trapped in that whole personal I'm going to be the Messiah thing, just get born on Christmas like me. You've got it made,
Oh
bro.
my god, true.
Yeah. It's all done.
All right, let's wrap this thing up.
All right. Peace and blessings.
Peace.